To preface this video, this is mainly aimed at people who have only stuck with one weapon through the base game of Monster Hunter World and might be thinking about learning another weapon, and I'll just kind of break down the benefits of learning another weapon, how that can help you as a player, and just give some tips overall on some of the weapons that I personally know. So maybe if you're interested in learning them, you can go ahead and learn them. It's unscripted, so I'm all over the place. I'm sorry for that, but if you can deal with my rambling, hopefully you learn something. Well, Iceborne's coming out in only a couple days from release of this video, so thought I might as well get this idea out there for people who have been playing the beta and have been wondering about the new weapon moves. So every single weapon got a new move or two, or some kind of new combo that they can do with the new Slinger Clutch Claw system. The bowguns didn't really get new moves, but they got new mods. The heavy bowguns can have an extra mod. So everything's just kind of jumbled up right now, and it's not really clear what the quote-unquote best weapon's going to be. I don't personally believe that there's a best weapon in Monster Hunter, but people would argue otherwise, I'm sure. So you got, like, 4 different types of hunters in Monster Hunter. You have what I call one-trick ponies. Everybody knows what that term means. You got people who play one weapon and they only play one weapon, and they play that weapon religiously. Got your jacks of all trades, people who don't really play just one weapon. They just kind of play what they feel like, just have fun with it. They may not be good at any particular weapon, but they're not bad at any particular weapon either. You got your meta players who will, just go online and search up what weapon does the most damage, easiest to use, works with the best build, whatever, and they'll stick with that. And then you got your people who actually don't know how to play any weapon, and they drag their team down. No offense to those people, but, they're out there. So, there's benefits to each play style. Your one-trick pony, while they may be kind of stubborn in trying to learn a new weapon or do something that may support the team, like, switching to a hunting horn or a gun or something if your team needs it. Those situations may arise online. They're usually really good at the weapon they're playing. They can take on any monster in the game with that weapon, and even if that weapon isn't particularly great against the monster, let's say like a great sword against Kushala, if you're not able to ledge trap it, it's kind of hard to hit it because he's always up in the air. They can still manage to get out of those fights usually unscathed without carting, and they always do really well. At least that's from my experience with playing with these one-trick ponies. People who are jacks of all trades, they will usually pick a weapon that will best suit their situation. Some weapons are obviously better than others at fighting certain monsters. Like, I think it goes without saying that ranged weapons and the insect glaive, for instance, are much better at fighting monsters that like to fly, because them being in the air doesn't neuter your damage potential. You can always jump up in the air and just do your damage with the insect glaive if you're fighting, let's say, like a Jurathalos, and if you're using a gun, all you have to do is aim and shoot. People who are meta players, they'll just go out there and do their best to go and imitate speedrunners and just do whatever cheese strats they can do, ledge trapping, flash bombing all the time, that kind of stuff. I don't think there's anything wrong with those players. I just don't find any fun in that kind of meta surfing for a game like Monster Hunter. I don't think it's necessary. And then, again, there are people out there who are using weapon and have no idea what they're doing with it. They'll usually cart a bunch, and they might rage quit from the game if, they cart once or twice and they just don't feel like playing anymore, and they take 2 carts in multiplayer. I'm not salty about running into those people at all. As an example, anyone out there that only uses the charge slashes with Greatsword, you don't know how to use Greatsword. I'm sorry. That's just not how the weapon is. There are many things you can do with the Greatsword that makes it a lot more versatile than people give it credit for. One big thing I see people not using with the Greatsword is the guard. The guard is very helpful with the Greatsword. The Greatsword has a lot of recovery in its attacks, like the longsword does, but you can usually cancel that with the guard. And the guard is pretty strong. It doesn't really take much from your stamina, it takes more from your sharpness, and that's very important. The Greatsword has an infinite combo with its wide slash upswing. You can just stand in place and do that over and over and over again. As long as you're not hitting one of your teammates, you're just doing consistent damage. Probably more damage you would do than trying to get that true charge slash and missing 30% of the time. But I digress. There are benefits to each of those playstyles. You can do whatever you want. Monster Hunter is a game that allows you to do that. But this is more to talk about if you should learn a new weapon. If you're one of those people that really only plays one weapon, or maybe one or two, if it's time to switch weapons completely, or if it's time to learn a new one. All the weapons have gained new combos, new moves, like I said before, and they're all very, very strong. I just was talking about the Greatsword, so we'll use that as an example. The Greatsword didn't really get any new moves per se, but it gained the ability to use its slinger, the Slinger Burst, in between some of its combos. And that Slinger Burst is very strong because after you use a Slinger Burst, you can go straight into a True Charge Slash. I know I just talked crap about the True Charge Slash, but I mean, it's a lot faster to, let's do wide swing, upswing, let's say, into a Slinger Burst, into a True Charge Slash. You can get that off very, very quickly, especially if you're running focus, let's say. The Longsword, for instance, got its special stance, which puts you into this Iaido type stance, and you can use that to recover out of the big round slash, which always ends in you sheathing your weapon. Instead of you sheathing your weapon, you can go into EI stance, and you got the triangle attack, or Y if you're playing Xbox, which if you hit the monster, it puts you into a state of spirit, which your spirit will regen for a while. So you don't really have to worry about hitting the monster a lot because it'll naturally regen for a bit. Kind of like after you hit Helmbreaker. And then the other one is the, I don't quite remember it now, I think it's the Spirit EI Slash, where if you've ever played GU, it's like the Valor counter. If you can time that attack at the same time as an attack being thrown at you, you will dodge that attack and you'll respond with a super hard-hitting attack that seems to do a lot of part damage. And man, I mean, that attack is absolutely crazy. I'll probably throw up a clip of it, of me doing it in the training room. Otherwise, the background footage for this will just be fighting like, I don't know, Bonbaro or some shit. But that being said, it's a good idea to look into a new weapon. I know this is kind of an all over the place video because it's unscripted, but if you're a person that only uses one weapon, Iceborne is the time to start learning a new weapon. It doesn't take long to learn a new weapon, for one. And by the time we all reach master rank, we'll get armors and weapons and stuff that are way stronger than high rank would ever give us. So you can always go back into high rank and practice against some of the Elder Dragons or something. But learning a new weapon is not only beneficial for you as a player because it gives you more versatility, it's also very good for team play in general. If you are, let's say, a Blade Master main, Blade Master referring to any of the melee weapons, and you've never used a ranged weapon before, then try picking up a ranged weapon. The reason I say that is, A, ranged weapons, like I said before, are just overall easier to use against aerial opponents because you can just aim and shoot. But if that's not the reason, then you now understand how a ranged player would play. In team play, that's important because while a melee player may get close to a ranged player because the monster is close to them and just start whacking away, and you start knocking over your ranged teammate and then they end up dying and you get pissed off, now that you've played ranged weapons, you start to understand, okay, ranged players can't take as much physical damage. Positioning is very important for ranged players. I need to make sure that I position in a way where I can not only benefit for myself, but benefit for my teammates, because now you understand the way they need to play. I didn't really plan on this being a long video, so I'm just going to go out there and start throwing out tips for people who want to learn a new weapon. I already said some things about the Greatsword, about the Longsword. Those are two of the weapons I'm very, very familiar with. The Clutch Claw is another very important part of the gameplay, and it changes the way all weapons will be played for sure. I mean, you got some weapons which can weaken the height of the monster, and then some weapons which can force a pod drop, and that changes everything. The combat's evolved so much. I think, like, I don't know about everybody else, but when I first heard the changes, I knew combat would feel different, but after playing the beta, it's noticeably different. Things feel faster, more intense, and that's also compounded the fact that in master rank, monsters are faster, they do more damage, they get angrier quickly. I mean, the combat's just gotten faster with it. It's a nice evolution of what we were already used to. So I'm an Insect Glaive main. I'm very familiar with the Longsword and Greatsword, but I started playing Monster Hunter World for the Insect Glaive because, I mean, I'm sure everybody else that plays the Insect Glaive saw the air combo and thought it looked hella cool and started playing it. That's the reason I started playing it too. But a tip for Insect Glaive users, the air combo is not everything. Now they buffed the air combos in Iceborne. They added something called a descending thrust, where you slam the blunt end of the insect glaive down into the monster, and then you do a big double swipe. It does a lot of damage. And if you hit the first part of that double swipe, it will mark the monster automatically in that spot that you hit, and the Kinsect will go after that. And something with the descending thrust actually allows your Kinsect to get 2 marks from the monster at once. So you can get like a red and a white buff at the same time, and then bring that in. It helps you get buffs much, much faster. But that being said, the air combo is not everything. DPS on the ground for the Insect Glaive is much, much higher overall than DPS in the air. If you see an opportunity to do an infinite combo on the ground, which I hope every Insect Glaive player knows how to do, do it. Don't jump in the air and start beating up the monster from the air if it's stunned or laying down or something. Don't do that. Stay on the ground, do your infinite combo. Trust me, it will do so much more damage. I see way too many Insect Glaive players just flying through the air, doing shit for damage, getting knocked out of the air over and over again, stunned and then killed, and it's not good for anyone. You're doing mounting damage, which is nice, but after a while, you'll stop getting mounts, and your DPS will just suffer. Also, the Insect Glaive has a very good combo for heavy staggers against the monster. If you do a wide slash with the Insect Glaive into Tornado Slash, or the Slam, if you don't have any buffs, which you always should have buffs, those 2 hits, for some reason, seem to have very high stagger values. If you hit the monster in the weak spot enough times with that, I'd say like 4 or 5 times even, they'll usually flinch. And obviously, that's good for many reasons, because if you can keep flinching them, eventually they'll just fall over altogether. I'm not an expert at this weapon, but I love to use it. I think it's very fun. I also think it's a shame that more people don't use it, but the Hunting Horn is an incredible weapon. It does a lot of damage. It may not look like it because it's a quote-unquote support weapon. No, the Hunting Horn does a lot of damage. You have to be kind of smart about the way you use the Hunting Horn because it doesn't have that many moves. You kind of have to invent your own combos based on the songs, but when you're using the Hunting Horn, you may notice that you move around a lot when playing the notes, especially with the triangle circle or the YB attack. That will make you jump back a bit with its second attack. Every single note, though, except for the new note that uses the left trigger or L2, depending on what console you're playing on, every single note can be turned into this stabbing animation. Quick correction, in the original video, I said hold forward in the corresponding note. That is incorrect. You hold it backwards in the corresponding note in a combo, and you will get that stabbing animation. If you do that, you can get your songs out a lot faster, and unbeknownst to a lot of people that aren't Hunting Horn mains, that does stabbing damage, actually. It does sever damage. You can sever tails with that. The likelihood of you doing that is very low, but out of the few Hunting Horn players I've seen, I haven't seen them really using that to their advantage. If you're trying to get songs out really quickly while damaging a monster, that's a good way to do it without like pushing you out of position. Another important thing to know about the longsword, it's a very, very position-based weapon. You need to know what you're doing with the longsword in terms of position. The combos are not as important for the longsword as positioning is. I think the only other melee weapon, in my opinion, where positioning is more important is probably the hammer. I mean, people will disagree with me, just my opinion, but the longsword has Fade Slash. Fade Slash is important not just because it can get you to your round slash quicker. Fade Slash does make you jump to the side, back. No, not forward. What am I thinking about? Fade Slash does make you jump to the side or back. Jumping back doesn't give you that much distance, but jumping to the side actually gives you a decent amount of distance, and you can dodge attacks with Fade Slash. When I was fighting Velkhana in the beta, I was using Fade Slash to dodge her tail. It is enough of a jump where you could do something like that. Velkhana's tail attack is very, very fast. On top of Fade Slash, you don't always need to use Foresight Slash properly. I know that sounds weird, but you can also use Foresight Slash as a repositioning tool. It pushes you very far back and then pushes you forward again. Whether you counter or not, that animation always happens. So you can Foresight Slash, let's say, away from a breath attack, and then Foresight Slash back forward, Well, that happens in the one animation, and you can push yourself to a more advantageous part in the monster, let's say. And then you can now use the EI stance to cancel the long recovery animation from Foresight Slash, and then you can counter from there. So you have 2 counters with the longsword. It's important to be in the right place at the right time with that weapon. Anyway, just wanted to get a quick opinion video out before Iceborne comes out. I'll be making more videos, probably on monster breakdowns and whatnot. I'm very excited for Rajang coming out, so I'll definitely do some fights with Rajang at some point when he comes out in October and talk all about him, because I love fighting Rajang. Oh, yeah. Thank you if you made it all the way through the rambling and the opinions and whatnot. My name's Fukunaga Blair of the Fukunaga Duo. That's a mouthful. Anyway, we'll be covering a lot more Monster Hunter in the future. The videos will definitely be more organized and more well put together in the future, but unlike my other Monster Hunter videos, I just needed to get something out there because I'm super excited for Iceborne, as everybody else is. So, thank you for watching, and hopefully you'll join me one more time to talk about Monster Hunter.